Narrative, balsamic, smoky, and leathery. Sign me up. Hello, welcome back to Seldomly Off, and I'm Daniel. Today we're talking fragrances, and this is a practical review of Andy Tauer's Lonestar Memories. These reviews are for fragrances that I have a lot of experience with, multiple wears in many situations, and I'm meant to give you a general idea of what it feels to wear the fragrance. As per usual, I do a lot of research before buying fragrances, but I don't really like to go into details about notes and accords because I don't think that they help the end user. I'd rather talk about the wear experience as a whole. I'm always more than ecstatic when tackling an Andy Tauer review, but you may be asking, then why don't you do it more? The reason is that Andy Tauer is a brand that I really like. The fragrances from the brand are all very evocative, they're all very narrative and very difficult to describe. They're very intense fragrances that I'm very attached to. And I tend to procrastinate reviewing fragrances that I really like just because I really want to make the scent justice. I really want to make the product the justice it deserves. And Lonestar Memories is definitely up there. It's definitely one of my favorite fragrances, especially in the genre. This is a magical narrative, beautiful wearing experience. I love it so much. It's intense, it's personal, but it's also relatively mass appealing, or rather, it's a little bit of a difficult scent to wear just because it smells so foreign, so different. But overall, the smell itself, I feel, is very likable. It's very reassuring. It has this wild, rugged, gritty texture to it, which in a way is very manly, but again, it's also incredibly transportative. But before we talk about the scent profile a little bit more, let me just tell you about Andy Tauer. Andy Tauer is a self-taught perfumer from Switzerland. He has a background in chemistry and he started making perfumes about 20-ish years ago, or even a little bit more. His first perfume was Le Maroc Bourrel. His second fragrance is, to this day, definitely his most popular creation, and it's the product that really launched him on the market, that really gave him a mainstream type of appeal. L'air du désert marocain is still to this day, over 20 years later, regarded as one of the best niche fragrances on the market. Incredibly transportative, still mass appealing, very light. It has a very unique wear experience. It's a pure masterpiece, and not only is one of my favorite fragrances from the brand together with this one here, but it's also one of my favorite fragrances overall. Lonestar Memories is Andy Tauer's third creation, and again, he came out with a bang. This fragrance is incredibly well received. It smells so unique. I really like the scent profile, and to this day, I really haven't smelled anything exactly like it. Very transportative. Both L'air du désert marocain and Lonestar Memories are fragrances that are fueled by very vivid imagery. If L'air du désert marocain is inspired by an evening overlooking the Moroccan souk in Marrakesh, and you have this desert wind just bringing in the spices, Lonestar Memories is all about the story of this single cowboy roaming the plains, settling down for the evening, maybe for the night, taking off his leather garments, washing up with a very balsamic soap, and brewing some coffee on the open flame. Everything is tranquil. He's in the middle of wilderness, and despite the scent coming off as a little bit edgy, gritty, and a little bit piercing, it has a very relaxing tone to it, kind of like you're sitting on a rock or on a stool in the middle of the freaking plains, and it's so quiet, it's so relaxing, so serene, almost spiritual. Beautiful stuff. This very description and narrative is not only featured on Andy Tauer's website, but it's a thing that most reviewers point to when talking about the scent. In my case, when I first smelled the fragrance, I already knew about the story, I already knew about the narrative because I do my research, but it wasn't really clicking for me. It wasn't really connecting with that specific narrative. Maybe it's because of my lack of cowboy experience, maybe it's because of my lack of horse-related activities. But despite liking this scent off the bat because I was really mesmerized by the notes and by the way it presents itself, I wasn't really connecting it with the wilderness itself. But the more I wore this scent, the more I got to know it, the more I recited this story, this narrative, the more in a way I started believing it. And it's strange because now I can't wear this fragrance without really recalling the cowboy idea, this whole narrative, this whole very tranquil sort of lifestyle. And the thing that really put the nail in the coffin for me was the review from Rich Mitch, where he refers to this fragrance as the perfect companion for a specific video game. The video game being Red Dead Redemption 2. If you don't know what I'm talking about, it's a cowboy video game, a masterpiece by the way, by Rockstar. And in that video game, you play this cowboy, which is very lonely in a way. There's a lot of lonely activities in the wilderness. And it's very immersive, very immersive. And this fragrance is the perfect companion to that. I can really attest to this. It's such a beautiful, immersive type of smell. It smells like the wilderness. It smells like you're immersed in this time of hard work, hard labor outdoors, sweat, leather, animals, and just a little bit more of a gritty, rustic way of life. This is absolutely gorgeous, and it always puts me in this incredibly relaxed, good mood. This and the other creations from Andy Tower are absolutely amazing. I really like the guy, I really like his charisma. He's such a joyful, down-to-earth person. If you follow him on Instagram, you know what I'm talking about. He's just overall like a net positive to the fragrance community and to fragrances in general. His art is really humble, it's really appealing. There's something about the way he bottles his fragrances alone, the notes that he leaves in the packages, everything is just so homey, just so welcoming. I really like his products and I'll always support him. He's one of my favorite brands ever. But before we talk about the wear experience for Lonestar Memories, let's touch upon the presentation. Presentation-wise, Andy Tower's products are incredibly recognizable. It all starts from the bottle design, the very iconic bottle design. He basically uses this bottle for all of his products. Some of them have this corner label here, which I find really appealing and very unique. Some other products, maybe the special editions or some newer ones, have a full front label. I'm not necessarily as much as a fan of that just because I really like this blue glass bottle. It's just so iconic. The bottle itself feels very, very homemade. Very, in a way, part spin. It feels a little bit cheap, but in the best way possible in this case. It feels assembled in a garage, which it is, by the way. It all starts off from the cap, which actually feels very plasticky, very cheap, very light, but it's also kind of cool because it looks in a way 3D printed. There's something about the look of it which kind of gives that away. The atomizers for Andy Tower's fragrances are very, very bad. They're some of the worst in the business. I can try to praise it, I can try to rephrase it, but there's really no excuse. They spray terribly. I've seen samples and decants with way better atomizers. Andy, please fix your sprayers. He probably won't because at this point it's almost like a meme. I think he's leaning into the fact that these are just so bad and people are kind of talking about it. Let's give it a couple sprays, maybe 3 or 4 in this case, just because it's so freaking bad. And also because I love this scent. I've been wearing it as my scent of the day and I really can't get enough of it. Actually, the more I spray it, the more I spray on me, the more it's just enveloping, the more it makes me happy and the more it makes me relax at the same time. Absolutely gorgeous stuff. But anyway, going back to the presentation, the bottle, as I was saying, it's a little bit cheap and part spin. At the very least, it feels unique. It's made specifically for Andy Tower. It has this embossing here, which is kind of cool. The rest is fairly pedestrian. The highlight of the presentation, in my opinion, is the box. Well, at least it used to be, because you would get these very beautiful tin metal boxes which slide open. Now you get simple cardboard boxes, which are definitely more recycle friendly. They still have a cool opening. They feel kind of special, but not as special as the metal tins. Those were really, really cool. Inside the box, you always get a handwritten note by Andy. I think it's really cool that the perfumer himself is there checking stuff, writing notes, and he's actually the person doing the final quality control, because ultimately these products are going out to customers which talk about the fragrances. And if the product shows up in such a cute and cared for way, you really can't talk bad about it, no matter how cheap it looks, no matter how part spin it feels. Because again, these products have a lot of Andy Tower himself in it. I think this is a huge selling point and a huge part of his brand identity. Speaking value, I feel that Andy Tower's fragrances are actually really, really good value, specifically L'Art des Arts Marocains and Lonestar Memories. These two specifically in Switzerland retail for about 110, 120 bucks, which is absolutely amazing value given how unique and high quality these feel, how creative and how intentional these come across. Absolutely amazing stuff. Abroad, I'm not really sure, but Andy is pretty good at shipping without tax. I think he recently set up a system where he takes care of the taxes and custom and any import fees. That's absolutely amazing. It feels luxurious. Again, it shows how much Andy cares about his products, how much he cares about having you get his products at the best price possible. Okay, time to talk about the wear experience and scent profile for Lonestar Memories. What does this actually smell like? To put it simply, Lonestar Memories is a balsamic, smoky, woody, leathery type of fragrance that is incredibly evocative, incredibly narrative. I really like this scent. This happens to be pretty much one of my favorite scent profiles. I love balsamic smokiness. I love woody notes. I love leathery notes, very subtle leathery notes at that. This is not a leather forward fragrance, at least not in the conventional way. I usually associate leather to saffron. Saffron gives me this very photorealistic leather type of look and feel. Think about something like Ombre Nomade. Think about something like Noir Kogan by Armani Privé. This one here does not have saffron. It has a very balsamic, maybe violet here. And violet is also associated to leather, but it's not necessarily associated to leather in my mind. There are some leather fragrances out there that I really struggle to connect to leather. One of them was Santa Maria Novella Peau d'Espagne. The other one being Salomé by Papillon. That one there also has a very specific leather accord, but it's not necessarily leather forward to me. This one here, again, to me is mostly smoky and balsamic. It's very resinous, it's very oily in a way. It feels rugged, it feels gritty, it feels from another time. And going back to that sort of struggle that I was having visualizing the narrative that even Andy Tauer himself is pitching, that was because I was trying to visualize the various stages of the fragrance rather than the fragrance as a whole, the mood as a whole. I was trying to individually visualize the coffee note, to individually visualize this soapy balsamicness, the leather component. Well, in reality, this is kind of like a uniform scent. It really comes at you all together, and it doesn't really transition much top to bottom. So what you have to do is kind of like surrender to what you're getting and just kind of let it do its thing and just envelop you in this atmosphere. Just to quote Rich Mitch again, because his review for this is absolutely amazing and very, very accurate, the balsamic smokiness of this comes across as you just handling some sort of a field fire. And you kind of get smoke on your clothes because you're standing in front of the fire. You're kind of wiping your dirty hands on your clothes. So your clothes are effectively embedded with this smoke flavor, this very balsamic, gritty type of a diesel oiliness in them, and it smells exactly like that. It has this balsamic, almost mentholated aspect to it. It smells kind of clean, but also kind of dirty at the same time. It kind of smells like gasoline fumes. It smells like a solvent, like something very, very powerful, but still leaves your hands kind of greasy in a way. And I don't know, there's something incredibly addicting about this smell. I really like weird smells like this. I'm not really sure which notes are giving this aspect. Maybe the geranium or some sort of herbaceousness. I can't even remember the notes in here, to be completely honest, just because the fragrance is so narrative and so transportative. It just completely bypasses any kind of like interpretation or like chemical interpretation of the fragrance itself. It just comes across as such a beautiful ride. As I was saying though, this fragrance doesn't really evolve or transition much. These balsamic notes, these mentholated, dirty type of oily notes are very, very present in the top of the fragrance as you first spray them, like now. And they very slowly fade off, they very slowly peter off, revealing a very smoky, oily aspect. And the strange thing about this is that as it dries off, as the scent evaporates, it gets warmer. It gets warmer in feeling and in smell. I'm just picturing this fire, which was roaring, and then in the middle of the night, it just sort of starts smoldering, and you get these smoldering logs, but there's a lot of radiant heat, and this smells incredibly radiant in the dry down. It's very, very beautiful. It's so relaxing, so calming. The dirtiness of the oily aspects, the dirtiness of the hand labor, of the outdoor hand labor at that really never goes away. And by the way, this is not a dirty or animalic scent at all. It's just very, very abstract. Without knowing the narrative, without wearing it multiple times, I doubt that any person would be able to tag it to anything. It's just so strange, a little bit foreign. It sits on the skin in a foreign way. And this really aids to the longevity of the scent, just because it doesn't really blend in with your skin whatsoever, at least not for me. And it sits on the skin like an oil. Maybe it's because of the concentration, maybe it's because of the scent profile itself, but it just sits there and never goes away and just radiates this sort of like smoky oiliness that's incredibly appealing to me. I really like it. I like the scent top to bottom. Actually, I think that the dry down is even better than the opening, and the opening is absolutely to die for. The dry down is so smooth, it's so warm and so enveloping, it's so relaxing like outdoor is, at least to me. I find walking outdoors, going for a trek or a hike in the middle of the wilderness, here I have the mountains, especially in the summer when you get that residual heat in the air, which really merges well with the cold air coming maybe from the wind. It's such a beautiful feeling, so relaxing, so one with nature. I can't really explain it in any other way. As I said before, this scent comes across as edgy, sharp, and a little bit pungent. It's very well spread out through the tonal range. You get high highs with those balsamic, fresh, clean, dirty notes, but also very deep lows with a rumbling, smoky amberiness. It has a nice woody, ambery base that really adds a lot of body, a lot of heft to the scent. This is not a light scent. It's actually quite heavy. Not heavy in a sense that it can be only worn in winter. Actually, I really like wearing this in the summer. This is pretty much a year-round scent, by the way. But it's a heavy scent because it's so easy to detect and smell, but that might also be due to the fact that this comes across as very abstract and foreign, maybe because of those mentholated, very balsamic top notes. Time to talk about the practicalities for Lonestar Memories. Starting off with performance. Longevity on this is absolutely amazing. I get easily 8 hours plus of wear, a very detectable wear at that. It might be due to the fact that, again, the scent kind of smells foreign, kind of strange. It never really blends in with my skin chemistry. It always feels like I've been rubbing my skin with some sort of a tiger balm or something like that. But it's very detectable even in the deepest of dry downs. Actually, the wear experience as a whole is incredibly well tailored and balanced. The projection at the start is very, very loud because of those piercing balsamic notes. But again, it fades off in such a mellow type of way, in such a natural type of way. It's beautiful. I love wearing this. It's just such a relaxing wear. There are no jarring jumps in the fragrance. There are no unexpected transitions. It's just a very predictable, very beautiful, very relaxing type of scent profile. When it comes to actual versatility in use cases though, Lonestar Memories is a little bit lacking. You really have to embrace that pungent, sharp, balsamic opening to really enjoy this. It's a strange scent. It's very, very easy to detect. People around you will definitely know when you're wearing this because it really can't be confused for anything else. So unless you embrace it as a signature scent, which by the way is completely possible, you're gonna stand out. You're gonna stand out and you're gonna be recognizable. So actual use cases for this, I would say it's pretty much all around. It's very abstract, very narrative. So it kind of transcends use cases. I wouldn't necessarily wear this to the gym just because it really doesn't work. I have, and it was actually a pretty enjoyable experience just because the heat of my skin really makes the scent bloom. But I wouldn't necessarily advise for a crowded gym. You might just choke people out. It might be a little bit too weird. Day-to-day activities are okay. Again, if you get past that pungent opening, which I really like, this is a pretty masculine, pretty kind of old school type of scent. Again, it's very abstract. Without the narrative, without that bias, without knowing what it is, you might just come across as someone that smells a little bit weird, a little bit musky, but in the best possible way. Evening elegant wear is also a little bit of a question just because those piercing balsamic mentholated notes really stand out and they don't necessarily scream winding down. It's I don't know, it's a very difficult scent to wear for me. I love wearing it, but I mostly wear it in solitude. I don't feel like justifying what I'm wearing. I don't feel like getting weird looks, but I don't know, maybe it's just me. It's incredibly loud, or rather very, very detectable, and it just kind of makes me uncomfortable if I'm around people wearing this just because of the clean, dirty aspect, very, very pungent. I kind of have to be around people that know that I'm a fragrance nerd, that know that I like weird things, or at the very least around people that didn't really complain about the scent before. So, I don't know, your mileage may vary. On me, it's a little bit of a difficult wear, but nonetheless, I absolutely love wearing this and I wear it a lot. When it comes to demographics, although I think that this is unisex given the narrative abstract nature of this, it does objectively lean a little bit masculine. It has this gritty, very sharp, very pungent type of smell that kind of smells like a guy's skin. Someone who has been working outside, getting their hands dirty with oils and I don't know, just outside. So unless you really want to smell like that, you have to be aware that you may come across as a little bit rough around the edges, as they say. It's quite leathery, quite, again, oily is the word that comes across, and it sits like an oil. When it comes to age, we also have a little bit of a mixed bag. This is not necessarily for young people. You could probably appreciate this even without being a fan of narrative fragrances. If you're the type of guy which is a little bit more mature, which is into heavy fragrances like Kuros, very green, very musky, very, very manly in a way, this one here could be your thing. Topping off the practicalities, again, imagery and narration is very, very strong with Andy Tower fragrances in general. They're all very, very evocative, very narrative, and Lonestar Memories is just that. I've talked about this throughout the review. It's just a beautiful, very relaxing, very transportative, very evocative type of scent. Actually, evocative to me is a much better word for this fragrance rather than storytelling, because I'm not necessarily getting that sequence of events that are depicted in the story, that cowboy that does A, B, and C. This is more of a general outdoorsy feeling. It has the very rustic, very gritty, very nature type of feeling that I really, really like and enjoy. I can't recommend this enough if you're into very evocative, very fresh and nature smelling fragrances. Okay, we're at the part of the video where I showcase some options for my reviewed fragrance. In the case of Lonestar Memories, I decided to really lean into that smoky, balsamic, green aspect. I love those notes. I love fragrances that feature those notes. And I have a couple here to showcase that feature to various degrees. The strongest one and my first option is definitely Vit and Armis. This is a beast of a fragrance which is almost unwearable to me. It's so incredibly loud, it's so incredibly gritty and pungent and sharp, but it features that green, sharp, smoky tobacco note like no other fragrance in my collection. Even smelling this from the atomizer, I'm reminded of how difficult to wear this is. It's just so bitter and just so powerful and overwhelming. Thankfully, this fragrance really does transition a lot top to bottom. In the base, this really lets out. It really becomes a lot smoother because otherwise it would be completely unwearable. And it becomes much more spicy, much more warm. Again, it has a similar type of evolution to Lonestar Memories. It just gets really, really warm. This fragrance is basically representing the Victorian spice trade by ship. There's a lot of spices, there's a lot of weird things that are all mixed together with this tar. It becomes basically this gulp, this very dark, thick gulp that just emanates smell. Very pungent, very powerful. This is a wild ride, and this fragrance is actually why I love Beaufort London so much. It's such an evocative, such an overwhelming, such a fatiguing scent to wear. Even though this is an incredibly heavy and difficult scent for me to wear at times, I'm still very much attracted to it. I'm attracted to the challenge of wearing such an overwhelming type of thing. I'm just so attracted to understanding this and to really kind of like piecing it apart and really diving into the house and just to the intent of the perfumer. Absolutely amazing stuff. I really recommend sampling this one and the whole house if you're feeling courageous and if you're in for the thrill. The second fragrance that I want to showcase is a little bit different, especially from Lonestar Memories. It just showcases a completely different image. This is Nabati from the Italian brand of Astrophil and Stella. This has the same balsamic, pungent smokiness up top, but it balances out in a very different way. This is kind of like a marine scent. It has a lot of saltiness. It has a lot of like warm amber. It's a very, very unique scent profile, very strange. It kind of reminds me of Le Liquide Imaginaire Abyssis, and that's all about basically a ship that has been burnt and it just like sank to the bottom of the ocean. This has the same sort of like burnt sort of smokiness with the saltiness, but it's much more milder, it's much more gentle. I'm not really sure what this is meant to be smelling like or what it's meant to be inspired by. I got this in a trade relatively recently. I haven't dug into the fragrance. I haven't really explored what the meaning is or what the intent or what the inspiration is. I have given it a couple wears, even more. It smells good, it smells potent, it smells radiant. I really enjoy it. And I wanted to feature it just because it has the same sort of edginess that really kind of reminds me of Lonestar Memories. The same sort of wear experience. Also, overall, the wear experience is fairly similar. It opens up very, very strong. And then it kind of like just calms down and becomes this radiant skin scent. Really, really nice, really interesting. I definitely plan to dive my nose more into the house of Astrophil and Stella. My last fragrance option is my usual oddball. I'll be surprised if anyone knows about this. This one here is Malinka by 432. This is a limited edition niche product from Chile and is designed to be really replicating the smell of Patagonia in the wilderness. So it has that in common. Also, the scent profile is fairly comparable to Lonestar Memories, although there's no character in this story. This is all about the environment. It's much more woody, it's much more green, it's much more subtle in a way. It has a lot of nuances. Apparently, these fragrances have a lot of local Patagonian naturals in them, which makes them probably not IFRA compliant. It smells absolutely amazing. It's a little bit incensey. It's incredibly long lasting considering the natural components. It's very, very interesting. I have smelled nothing like it. And if you're questioning the resemblance with the Nasomatto bottles, I can confirm that the bottle itself is exactly the same. It even features the corner label. The atomizer is also the same. The cap is a little bit different. Obviously, it's not the squared off cap, but it's a natural wood. Very, very beautiful. I really like the scent. It's so unique. I was so lucky to be gifted this. It's just such a beautiful scent profile that perfectly aligns with my taste. It has a nice, fresh, pungent note up top, very smoky, very beautiful. On the bottom, it becomes woody and incensey rich. There's a lot of greenery in here, a lot of oily greens. It just feels like the environment. It feels like nature. It's absolutely amazing. I really, really like this fragrance. The house actually has only 2 fragrances. I would love to get my hands on the other one. Unfortunately, they do not ship outside of Chile, which is an absolute shame. If you happen to travel to Patagonia, definitely look into the niche houses there. I know it's a little bit weird, but they have really, really good offerings. One is this one here. The other one is Casaniche. That is a little bit more easy to find, especially in the US, so it might be a little bit more easy to come by. From Casaniche, I have something called Atacama Bloom, which is again Patagonia inspired, but that's a heavy, heavy floral, so it has nothing to do with the scent profile, and I decided to feature this one here. I love the thing, and I'll be cherishing the hell out of it. Not only because it's rare and hard to get, but it's also a limited edition, so when this is gone, it's probably gone forever. Again, really, really cool stuff. If you have a chance, try it out. I doubt it, but hey, I wanted to showcase something different. Back to Andy Tower's Lonestar Memories for my final recommendation and overview. Andy Tower as a whole is amazing. You gotta check out the fragrances. They're all very, very good. There's not one fragrance that really left me wanting for more. They're all incredibly characterful, incredibly narrative, and just there's so much soul and love into them. You just can't help but applaud it. This one here is one of the best ones from the brand, Lonestar Memories. It's just so evocative, so gritty, so pungent, so intentional. It's actually quite rare to find a fragrance that goes all in on one idea without wanting to compromise to make it more mass appealing, to make it more likable. Andy Tower is just that guy. He makes fragrances first and foremost for himself with a very direct, very intentional type of narrative, very intentional type of idea and intent. I really applaud that. That is the great thing about these uber niche houses. They're not really looking for market shares. They're not really looking for profits. Obviously, they're there for the profits, but they really rely on their art and expertise, and they really rely on the uniqueness of their products. I really like it. Andy Tower is amazing. You should definitely get yourself a sample set because, again, those are also amazing. They come in beautiful tin boxes. The fragrances are all amazing. They're super long lasting, very, very unique. You have to give Andy Tower a try because if you haven't, you're severely missing out on one of the best fragrance houses on the market. If you like this type of content, if you like my approach to video, feel free to subscribe. It's always massively appreciated and it helps the channel. If you want to interact with me, leave a comment, suggestion, opinion, or anything else down below. I always reply and I always keep the conversation open. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for your time. It's never taken for granted. Many more reviews to come. As per usual, see you in the next one and cheers.